What is the attraction to Sedevacantism,
Yeah.
and why should we reject it?
I think some people find it.
And what is it for those at home?
Yeah, so it's the view that there is no pope at the moment. A little different than Benevacantism that says there is a pope, it's just Benedict. Sedevacantism says there is no pope, and there's various versions of it, but the most common would be that there hasn't been a pope since Pius XII. So over, 70 years now, hasn't been a pope. I think some people find it attractive because they think that they can conceptually still maintain Catholicism and its traditional view as far as the papacy and all of its doctrinal teachings, but I can completely ignore all the chaos that is going on in the post-conciliar era, including Pope Francis's pontificate. I could just completely ignore it all because he's not the Pope and none of these guys have been popes. So it's convenient for some because they say, I can still maintain Catholicism, which I'm convicted of, and I don't have to explain anything in the post-conciliar era. So, however, sometimes the truth isn't always that easy, right? Sometimes it requires some digging and explanation. And my ultimate problem with a Sedevacantism is going to be twofold. Number one, you have Vatican I using language about perpetual successors to the chair of St. Peter. There will always be perpetual successors until the second coming. Well, if we've gone over 70 years without a pope, with no end in sight, according to the Sedevacantists, haven't we disproven already Vatican I's claim of perpetual successors? I mean, at what point have we invalidated the adjective perpetual?
Now we get to this next one. The chair of Peter can't be vacant for such a long time. How many have heard that before? Oh, there's no way. Can't have a pope for that. No pope for that long. Objection number two. Vatican Council I taught that St. Peter has perpetual successors. Therefore, long vacancies in the See of Peter are not possible. You know, the first question they ask people, okay, well then where does the church teach that it can't be this amount of years, and it has to be this amount of years, and it can't be that amount of years? Nowhere. Nowhere does the church determine how long a vacancy may exist in the See of Peter. The point of the matter is this. The office is always existing. There's not always an incumbent, someone occupying that office, and that's the point. Between the death of Pope Clement IV, 1268, and the election of Pope Gregory X, 1271, there was an interregnum of nearly 3 years. During the Western Schism, there were three claimants to the See of Peter. Theologians teach that even if none of them were pope, that would not be against the promise of Christ or the teachings of perpetual successors. Now we read the proof. This is from Reverend Deutsch, The Institutions of Fundamental Theology. The church, therefore, is a society that is essentially monarchical, but this does not prevent the church for a short time after the death of a pope, or even for many years, from remaining deprived of her head. And this is, the next one is the relations of the church to society, Father Edward J. O'Reilly, S.J. And this is after Vatican II, after Vatican I in 1870, 12 years after Vatican I, when infallibility was defined and perpetual successors was defined. This is what Father O'Reilly says. In the first place, there was all throughout the death of Gregory XI in 1378 a pope. This is when he's talking about three men claiming to be pope, the Western Schism. With the exception, of course, of the intervals between the deaths and elections to fill up the vacancies thereby created. There was, I say, at every given time a pope, really invested with the dignity of the vicar of Christ and the head of the church. Whatever opinions might exist among many as to ingenuineness, not that an interregnum covering the whole period would have been impossible or inconsistent with the promises of Christ, for this is by no means manifest. So even if for nearly 40 years there was no pope, that's not against the promise of Christ. Father Hill, S.J., The Catholics' Ready Answer, 1915. If during the entire schism, nearly 40 years, there had been no pope at all, that would not prove that the office and authority of Peter was not transmitted to the next pope duly elected. The defense of the Church, a Catholic Church by Doyle. The Church is a visible society with a visible ruler. If there can be any doubt about who that visible ruler is not visible, and hence, where there is any doubt about whether a person has been legitimately elected pope, that doubt must be removed before he can become the visible head of the Christ Church. Blessed Bellarmine, S.J., says, a doubtful pope must be considered as no pope, and Suarez, S.J., at the time of the Council of Constance, there were 3 men claiming to be pope. Hence, it could have been that not one of them was true pope, and in that case, there was no pope at all. So this issue about there can't be such a long time without a pope, that's not a valid argument.